Hi everyone, Vernon here with the latest Cities and Past vlog, and this is part 3 of our look at City's history throughout the years. We've covered from the beginnings before Manchester City, from 1880 obviously up to a very successful 1903-1904 season, haven't we, in part 2, where we came very close to doing a league and cup double. Unfortunately, we won the FA Cup, but we finished second in the league, but it's a good place to finish, wasn't it? Before I get into it today, I just want to say, it's just, I do little blogs and things on Twitter, etc., for old City games on this day. And it was nice this week because I had a mail off a gentleman whose father was Derek Jeffries, and Derek Jeffries was obviously featured in a little image I show on the vlog, on my blog on Twitter. That's Derek right at the end there. And his obviously it was showing the 2 cups. Obviously, I'd posted that a few days ago, and it was his son, Derek Jeffries' son, actually asked about the picture. He hadn't got this picture or seen this picture. Obviously, it's in the Chelsea away programme in 1970. And I've seen pictures where they've got the 2 trophies, but it's just the actual squad of the team, so 12 or 13 players. So this is nice because you've got obviously the players who perhaps were the reserve and stuff in this one as well. So I was able to point him in the right directions where he could get an image of it. It's nice when things like that happen, and obviously I could help him out. It's nice for Derek Jeffries' son to get an image of his dad there. It's a great little thing to look back on, isn't it, for him? Anyway, please, if you like these things I do on City's history, please push the subscribe button, push the bell notifications. Thumbs ups are always nice to be appreciated. Right, so we're looking at 1904, 1905, aren't we? So we had a cracking season, didn't we? 1903, 1904. Could have been so much better, but we can't quibble, can we? We brought the FA Cup back, and we've sort of more or less made ourselves put Manchester on the map as far as football was concerned, because it was obviously more noted for rugby at the time. So it was a good way for Manchester City to put Manchester on the map. So 1904, 1905, I mean, obviously we didn't have any great FA Cup runs in these coming years, unfortunately. We managed a couple of quarter-finals. We did go out, obviously, defending our FA Cup. Sadly, we went out in the second round. We lost to Bolton Wanderers at home 2-1, unfortunately, in this season, 1904, 1905. And it was a bit of a mishmash. Won a few, drawn a few, lost a few. And up to Christmas, we were doing okay. But 1905, when the year turned, the first 8 games in 1905, we actually won. We actually won the first 8 games home and away in 1905. So it put us up towards the top of the league. And our first defeat was actually the 18th of March, 1905, when we were, never ever say 2005, etc. Don't worry about it. I mean, just bear with me. It's all 1905s. So yeah, it was a way to Nottingham Forest was our first defeat, and we actually continued to challenge at the top of the table for the title up to the very last day, which was a match with Aston Villa away, who were actually below us in the league. But obviously, it was. Well, this is where it all started going wrong for City in 1904-05. It was a very, very angry game. It was a very competitive, nasty game as well. But the thing is, the ill-tempered defeat, it ended up with one of the City players, Stanley Turnbull, was involved in some sort of fracas after the game, and there was other problems. And it led to a special FA committee being set up to look into this. And obviously this FA committee was looking into this shenanigans. We were talking about bribes paid to Aston Villa players, etc. But the FA didn't stop there. I mean, they've never liked us, have they? Still don't like us now. They actually started looking into all City's operations from previous seasons and this season. So it's going to be a very, very worrying time. Off the pitch, obviously, we've still got some good crowds. We've got a couple of 40,000 crowds at Hyde Road, which was the capacity against Everton and Newcastle. So obviously, this season as well, we actually staged its first and only semi-final match, a game between Tottenham. I think it was Tottenham Hotspur and Sheffield. Sorry, Newcastle and Sheffield United was played at Hyde Road. So that was like the first and only one. We had a few at Main Road, obviously FA Cup semi-finals, but that was the first and last one at at Main Road. My thanks, by the way, to this Gary James, his 125 timeline that he does in the City programmes. I got a lot of my information from there. I'll show you all the sources of information and thank them as we're going through. So yeah, I mean, that was the first semi-final, but obviously the worrying thing was obviously the fallout from this Villa game, and unfortunately the first casualty of this was the great Billy Meredith, who had been a star for City and been noted as the first real superstar in football. And on the 29th of April 1905, he was actually suspended for 12 months for apparently offering a bribe allegedly offering a bribe to a Villa player. So obviously 1904-05, although we missed out on the league, I think we finished third in that league. Obviously, it didn't end up very well. And obviously this FA committee was going to carry on looking into various things, which meant by the start of 1905, 1906, we still had this hanging over us. And so, because it was going to go on for another year, it was going to be May 1906 before the FA come up with their decision on Manchester City. It was only Manchester City they were looking at. Obviously, so the 1905-06 season started again, not so great. We were knocked out in the first round of the FA Cup. We did okay in the league again. I mean, we would go on to finish a respectable fifth in the league, but the trouble was to come, obviously, in May when the FA gave their decision. They looked into all City's actions, not just this game versus Villa. So this is at the end of the 1905-1906 season, which again was okay for City, but considering the problem that was obviously over the City team and the City players and staff, directors, everything, the manager, etc. And they gave their decision and decided City, amongst other things, were paying over the minimum wage, over the maximum wage allowed. They decided that was happening. They decided that other City players, apart from Billy Meredith, who you remember missed the whole season because he was obviously suspended, and this led to him leaving and joining Manchester United, unfortunately for us, unfortunately for them. But they decided that other City players were also involved in the bribe scandal, and in total 17 players were suspended. And the manager and chairman and directors were all suspended. And obviously, a lot of these players ended up going to various clubs because obviously City just had to get rid of all their staff, basically. And United picked up 3 or 4 of our best players, including Billy Meredith. I mean, the media, interestingly enough, was sort of back City. They said what was happening at City was happening at many of the big clubs. Obviously, City were a big club at the time. Well, we have that argument now, don't we? But City were definitely one of the big clubs in those days. And the media were quite defensive of City, saying that they'd been unfairly treated and what was going on at City was not unusual at any other club. But obviously City had been forced to do this. So it led to a gentleman called Harry Newbold coming in as the secretary manager in July 1906, obviously to try and sort things out the 1906-1907 season. So we've got a team picker. We've got a picture of that one. Yeah, this is from Manchester City Moments to Remember. I've got a picture of the 1906 team there. So obviously they'd had to go out and get new players, etc., and beg, steal, and borrow to try and get a team because we'd lost all our team. So the FA didn't throw us out of the division. They didn't actually get rid of us or anything like that from the division, but it meant obviously we lost some of our better players, so we had to get a lot of new signings, beg, steal and borrow someone. And obviously we started the league on September the 1st 1906 with a home game against Arsenal, and these problems were made worse by we had a heat wave, believe it or not, in Manchester in 1906, and we had temperatures in the 90 degrees heat. City actually, with a cobbled together team, which is what it was, ended up losing 4-1. But the irony was we ended up the game with 6 players on the pitch because players had collapsed because of the heat. Obviously, it didn't have such an effect on the Arsenal players who probably had better preparation for the season, etc. And that led to this worn-out City team going to play Everton a few days later. And we suffered our heaviest defeat ever, and it is still to this day. After that, a 9-1 defeat at Everton. which is, I think till this day still stands as the heaviest defeat ever. So you can understand the reasons for it. Obviously, as I say, it was literally 2 days after this game where we'd finished a game with 6 players. We'd actually gone to Everton, had to play them, and got absolutely slaughtered by a good Everton team, obviously 9-1. So the only real highlight, well, there weren't many highlights that season, obviously, one problem after another. But we did actually play Manchester United for the first time. They'd actually now changed to Manchester United from their Newton Heath name. So it was the first game to play against Manchester United on December the 1st, 1906. Unfortunately, City, in front of 40,000, which was a near capacity for the Hyde Road, won that 3-0. So it was nice to beat Manchester United under the new name. We lost in the FA Cup again, went out first round. But we struggled, but we did manage to stay up in Division 1. We did manage to finish 17th. And the best of it was we still remained the 3rd best supported club in English football behind Newcastle and Aston Villa. So even though there were problems on the pitch, off the pitch, everywhere, City still remained one of the best supported teams in the English Football League, which they do for most years of these early years of playing in the Football League. Then we go on to 1907, 1908, and we had 6 games in the FA Cup, but that didn't mean we progressed to the quarterfinals or anything like that. They were all round 1, 2, and 3, so we had 2 games each in each round, and we eventually lost in a replay to Fulham in the 3rd round. And despite another rebuild during the summer and a lot more comings and goings, we actually did very, very well. We actually managed to go on and finish 3rd in the English First Division, which is an absolutely stunning achievement when you think we'd lost most of our players. This is under Mr. Newbold in 1907, 1908. And I think I've got an image of the final table. Yeah, that's the final table. The only negative thing was, look who won the league that year. So we did finish 3rd, but unfortunately, it did mean that Manchester United for the first actually won the league, which was obviously a little bit depressing. And we've got a picture of the goalkeeper who played really well that season. And he did go on to play a few games for City over the seasons, but he was sort of in and out of the team. But a gentleman called Walter Smith. That's an image of Walter Smith with his cap there. Played really, he actually helped City get to 3rd in the league. Had a great season. And he was the first ever present in league games since Billy Meredith back in 1903, 1904. And City had done, they say, even though we finished 3rd, we were still in for a shout in April, but it was to go to a Meredith-inspired United. Obviously, they were to win the league. And we did face United towards the end of the season. We drew our last 3 games. So if you think back, obviously, United won by 9 points overall from Villa and City. So we ended up drawing our last 3 games. Not that it would have mattered, but obviously that included a 0-0 draw, ball draw, I believe, against United at Hyde Road. So that summed up the 1907-1908 season. And so on to the 1908-1909. Could we go better? Could we do any better? And we do have a team picture of the 1908-1909 team. That's the team, and there's a season card for that season. Really, you didn't swipe it, you didn't put in a little thing, but there's the team and the season card for the 1908-1909. And there were high hopes, obviously, but again, 1908-1909, a lot of inconsistencies in the league games, and by April we were actually 6th from bottom. By April 1909, we were 6th from bottom. Looking okay, so we were comfortable 6th from the bottom. We weren't struggling, but in the last 6 games, we lost 5 of them, which meant we went into the last game of the season. We needed a draw. We could still stay up, no problem. We could still stay up. We needed a draw with Bristol City, and a dour backs to the wall game, defensive play, I believe, by Manchester City. Sadly, Bristol City scored with 2 minutes to go, and obviously no other team did us a favour, and City went down on goal difference. So obviously we only just needed to draw that game. We would have been okay. So we went from third place early in the season before to getting relegated, which is not unlike City, is it? We've done worse than that over the history. Well, we'll get to that in another one of these, obviously. Again, the FA Cup was an absolute waste of time. We went out of the FA Cup again in the first round. So it finished another very disappointing season for City, back in the second division, despite, again, still having really good crowds, being one of the best supported teams. So we went to 1909, 1910. And obviously, even though we're in Division 2, City did remain one of the best supported teams in the country, even in Division 2. And obviously, the media were noticing and actually commenting on the fact that City's supporters would stay with the team even through adversity. So they were actually getting plaudits, the fans, which was always nice to see. So again, don't mess about. We didn't mess about. We had some setbacks, but for the third time since 1899, we actually won. We actually won the second division. I've got the second division top 1909-10. As you can see, Oldham, we beat Oldham into second place. So again, so for the third time, City finished top of Division 2, which is pretty good. You know, we would keep going. We keep going. Bit of a West Bromwich Albion, the boing team, weren't we? Bouncing from one thing to another. But again, we got ourselves back into Division 1, which was quite important at the time, because the 1910-1911 season, United had actually now moved to Old Trafford. Old Trafford with a 70,000 capacity. Don't forget, Hyde Road at City only had a 40,000 capacity. United had moved to Old Trafford, and they did have a capacity of 70,000. Although over the following years, he didn't really get anywhere near filling that. And you know, they did get a 60,000 crowd against City and some other crowds. But even though they had a 70,000 stadium, they still obviously lagged a little bit behind City's support. So in 1910-11, they'd done that. So what City actually did, they didn't sit on the laurels. What they did, they actually improved Hyde Road as well. They made it 3 sides all covered. So they actually made sure there was 3 roofs on 3 sides of the game, 3 sides of the ground, which was pretty good. And so that was 35,000 fans would be undercover at Hyde Road. And Old Trafford only had about a quarter of that. They had just sort of one main roof. So obviously, even though they had the bigger ground and moved to a new ground, City had sort of pulled ahead on the quality and the comfort of the spectator, which was really good. But obviously 1910-1911 wasn't going to be a fantastic season for City. We did struggle. We actually were beaten in the first ever derby at Old Trafford. Unfortunately, we lost 2-1 of that. And City were bottom of the table at Christmas. And you know, but fortunately we were lucky. We did recover. It wasn't going to be another sad relegation. We even played United with 10 men and held them to a 1-1 draw at Hyde Road in January in front of another 40,000 crowd. And we sort of won enough to stay up. And we went from bottom, finished safe in 17th, which is obviously a 20 league division. So we finished 17th. So United won the league again, unfortunately, that season. So another win for United, but we did get a little bit back on them. We won the Manchester Senior Cup against United in the final of that, but obviously it was no compensation for United once again winning the league. But again, City became the best supported team in all of the English league. So not just the top 2 or 3, they actually became the best supported team with an average crowd of about 26,000. Newcastle was second with 24,000 average. United were down in 6th with a 20,000 average. So again, City fans were turning up in the numbers and making City one of the best supported teams. So that was 1910, 1911. Will 1911-12 be any better? Well, no, another struggle for City. Despite a hard-fought 0-0 against United on the opening day of the season at Hyde Road, was only 25,000 crowd, which was quite low for a derby match. But obviously, probably people were still on holiday, weren't they, and things in early September 1911. But we only managed 5 wins out of 28 league games, so that plummeted us again once more into the into the relegation zone. And mid-March, a lot of injuries and problems forced Harry Newbold to make various changes. He was playing defenders as forwards, etc., etc. And it did really, it worked. I mean, City won 9 out of the last 11 league games. And from bottom, they managed to finish a wonderful 15th, which was never even dreamed of. Unfortunately, Harry Newbold, which I've got an image of Harry Newbold somewhere. The gentleman with the tie, that's the City team from 1910, and that's Harry Newbold there. So despite his brave attempt and his managing City through all the problems with the FA bans, etc., he actually resigned. I mean, most people thought it was a bit tired and worn out by everything, and obviously we'd had a couple of seasons where we're struggling again with escape relegation this season. But unfortunately, Mr. Harry Newbold resigned on just ahead of the 1912-1913 season. But strangely enough, the new manager, an Ernest Magnell, came from Manchester United, and it was known he was coming to City from the start of the 1912-1913 season. So this was a bit like, don't forget this guy, United have won 2 league titles in the last 3 seasons. This was like Ferguson leaving United at the start of his trophy winning, coming to City. This was unbelievable. This was just unheard of at the time. But he left United literally after a 1-0 defeat to City at Old Trafford. So even though he was the manager, he was actually, everyone knew he was going to be the manager of Manchester City, and it was the second game, and City won 1-0 at Old Trafford, and he was still the United manager. So it's a really strange situation. And there's still that derby match, there's actually still footage. It was filmed for a French TV company. There's still footage of that available, 19 seconds, which might be worth trying to dig out. It was on the 7th of September 1912. So if you can, there is still footage knocking around for that if it's of any interest to you. City went pretty much unbeaten in September, so they started really well. They won the first 5 games, so everything looked really good. The fans again were being complimented on them turning out, and the fact that they were still stuck by them in the second division and the first division. The papers were full of that. But City couldn't keep up the good run. So although by December they were still in with the title shout, by December it started to fade away, and the City sort of stuttered along away from the league. The FA, we had an FA Cup tie against Sunderland at Hyde Road. I don't forget, the Hyde Road only held 40,000 capacity, and many estimates put the actual crowd near to 50,000. The crowd just spilled onto the pitch, and there's a picture again of not a very great picture from taken from there, showing the police holding the crowd back. But they had to, in the same way you had the White Horse at Wembley in 1923, they had mounted police on the pitch trying to hold the crowds back when they played Sunderland in this FA Cup game. And the crush forced the abandonment of the game, and because City were held to blame, the replay was actually played away. It was actually played in Sunderland, which City ended up losing. But most people said even hours before the game, the ground was packed. They had to shut the gates, and people with season cards, people with tickets couldn't get into the ground. It was just absolute, which again was showing the limitations by 1912-13 of Hyde Road for the massive support City were getting at the time. So obviously we went to Sunderland. We lost there. This was the second round. We lost the replay of an abandoned game, unfortunately. So again, we were out of the FA Cup. In the league from March onwards, only 3 wins from there. So we had no chance of doing anything for a title challenge. That soon petered out. We ended up finishing a respectable 6th, and we did actually set a new record. We kept 16 clean sheets, which was a record for how many clean sheets City had kept in a season. So although the challenge started well in the league, we won the first 5, then we stuttered along a little bit, stayed near the top, and then obviously by only putting those 3 wins in the last few games, obviously just actually made a title challenge undoable. So we finished 6th in the season 1912-1913. And of course it comes on to 1913-14. I mean, you've got to think 1914 is the beginning of World War One, isn't it? So obviously there were murmurings into 1914. Obviously, problems abroad, etc. So there was a little murmuring that this could be a final season, but there's no guarantee of that. And we did actually start 14-15 season as well. But again, 1913-14 inconsistencies again for City. And we only actually won 4 games before January. So again, more worries of relegation. So obviously our new manager is struggling a little bit. This potentially talked about we were really struggling, weren't we? We did have a bit of an FA Cup run. I mean, I think this is the second time in the last few years. I think we got to the quarter final. I think we've got a picture of the City Tottenham game. Sheffield United game, in the quarter final. It ended up with 2 replays. That's at Hyde Road. So we did get to the quarter final. Unfortunately, we did lose the second replay. It went to 2 replays, and we lost the second replay 1-0. So, although obviously 1914 from January onwards, the hopes were high on the pitch. We were doing well. We won the first 4 or 5 games in 1914. Sadly, the FA Cup run will come to an end. And again, inconsistencies on the pitch. Although we had that good little run, we couldn't keep it up. And City finished 13th, a place above Manchester United, which was small compensation for another pretty poorish season, wasn't it? 13-14. So we finished above United on goal difference. We'd actually beat United at Old Trafford in front of 35,000. That's it towards the end of the season. So that's sort of a little bit of gloss on a season that promised a lot. We did pretty well over Christmas time, January, but obviously things faded away, and the FA Cup run will come to a dreaded halt. So obviously it will take us on to 1914-15, and that's where we're going to stop. We're going to look at that next time when we come back, because obviously the season did start in September 1914-15, but obviously things were not going to, certainly not going to end well, were they? So that was the end of that. So we hope we enjoy that. No trophies, unfortunately. I don't even think there'll be any trophies in the next one either, which is pretty sad, because obviously we're looking at 1914 to about 1924-25. So we'll be looking at that last time. My thanks also to the City Years by Gary James, which I've used as well for some of the narration today. And if you ever follow Gary James on Twitter, he's at Gary James Writer. Please follow him on Twitter. Absolutely superb. Tons of information. And I've got Manchester, obviously, again, on Wikipedia. I've used Wikipedia UK as well. So my thanks to Wikipedia, Gary James, the City Programmes, the Moments to Remember book by John Creighton, which I've used for other information. My thanks for them for putting this together today. I hope you enjoyed that. And I'll be looking at the next 10 years in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And please join me for lots more history. They're all in the links below. Lots more history blogs. And I've just recently looked at February 1982. So if you have a look on the links below, push the bell notification so you know when these things are coming out. That'd be great. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter at nostalgia_movie for all these things about City past and present. Follow me on there, and also on Facebook at Burgeoning with links to Movie Game Nostalgia.com, which is just my website where I sell rare DVDs, posters, and board games. Anyway, thank you for joining for that little look from 1904 to 1914-15. A lot of potential, wasn't there? A lot of chances. We came a couple of chances, but only 1 relegation, so it wasn't too bad. I mean, 2 or 3, 4 tilts at the title, which is really good. Unfortunately, no more cup runs, so that was a bit disappointing. A couple of quarter-final places, that was about it. But crowd, obviously, this is going to be noted as well. Obviously, with the crowds, obviously, Hyde Road was proving very too small, wasn't it? Let's be honest about it. For one of the best, and not the best supported clubs in the English First Division at the time. So that was obviously with United having a nice brand spanking uncovered Old Trafford with a 70,000 capacity. Yeah, I think we'll talk about the plans City have next time for. It's not going to be an expansion to Hyde Road, is it? We're going to plan for something a little bit bigger. but more of that obviously in the next 10 years when we look at 1914 onwards. Anyway, thank you so much for watching today. Whatever you're going to do the rest, have a great one. Look after yourself, look after your friends, and more importantly, look after your family. And please join me for one of these vlogs again. And it's been a pleasure to spend a bit of time talking about City with you. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you all again soon. Bye-bye.